Hi, everyone. Back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with the Aftermath. This is the show we do when the dust has settled from Newcastle United's latest game, which happened to be an unbelievable Premier League classic 4-3 win at home to Leeds at St James's Park. I don't even know if the dust will settle from this game for about 3 weeks, to be brutally honest with you. An unbelievable game for the neutral to watch. A terrible game probably for Newcastle United and Leeds United fans, who were brilliant as well against Newcastle United. And I really hope Leeds stay up as a football club. I think they're starting to play some much better football. I think they're physical. I think they're they're adventurous. They're not scared of teams, and that's a great recipe for Leeds United to stay up. And I think they will stay up this season. But what Newcastle United did in the wake of the bad news we heard from about Kevin Keegan's condition, we hope Keegan gets better very, very soon, as everybody else does. What an absolute legend Kevin is for the club. But it was a throwback to a bygone era where Newcastle's ethos was just, we'll score more goals than you. And this is something that we haven't associated with this Eddie Howe team this season. When we go behind, we struggle to get back into games. This is the first time that we've gone behind and actually roared back to win a game. And it was largely driven forward by some big performances from players who you can put your trust in, and Eddie Howe, more importantly, can put his trust in. And I've got to give him a shout out straight away. One of those players that has emerged from a bit of a topsy-turvy Premier League season, certainly so far. And the reason that we're sixth currently in the Premier League is because the Premier League itself is so inconsistent. And I don't know what the answer is for that, whether it's just too many games in the players' legs, and that's why teams are struggling to get consistent runs of performances. And it isn't just Newcastle, it's Liverpool, it's Man City as well, dropping points. The Premier League is so inconsistent. I'm not a gambler. Gamble responsibly if you do, but my word, people's accas must be in the toilet this season in terms of trying to get results in this Premier League. It's just, you can't predict anything. You get more chance of getting the lottery numbers right at the minute. But one performance I've got to shout out, and this is a player who's emerged, from almost the kind of shadows of mediocrity at times this season, is a 19-year-old lad in Lewis Miley. In this game, he played 3 separate positions. I'm not sure I've seen a footballer do that probably since I looked at Steven Gerrard when he played for Liverpool. And I remember the final against Milan, in Istanbul. It's early this. I'm recording before I head out. I've only just finished late night recordings last night. It's overtime forevermore. But I remember Steven Gerrard dropping in at left back in that game up with cramp. He was practically on one leg and he was phenomenal. I think he did it against West Ham in the FA Cup as well when Liverpool won the trophy. I think it was under Benitez, both those games. And Lewis Miley just seems to be able to adapt in any position that Eddie Howe is playing him in. And that is so vital for a player. If you're a manager and your player can play anywhere, and he just gets on with it, and he doesn't make a stink about it, cough, cough, Anthony Gordon, and he actually plays really well there. I mean, I called him a Swiss Army knife last night, Lewis Miley, and that's what he's that's what he's looking like he can be, is a Swiss Army knife, because what the kid has got is unbelievable calmness, quality, his skills with the ball is great, but what he's developed into is a physical, strong, athletic player with technique. He's the perfect hybrid player for Eddie Howe and for all Newcastle fans right now, because when it's a bit of a fight, he can get in the mixer now. He doesn't go shying away from it. He's not a little skinny slight boy anymore. He's a brick shithouse of a man, and he can do that, and it's incredible. It really is, the way the kid's playing. But his technical ability with the ball, the way he links up with his teammates, the way he finds passes, the calmness, the composure, it's almost Carrick-esque the way you watch the lad play. And he's becoming such a great footballer. And just looking at the stats there, defensively, started right back, went in the midfield, played his part in the second goal. I still don't know how he kept that ball in, showed pace that people accuse him of not having. And then he goes to centre-half with a horrible injury from Fabian Schär. We haven't had an update on that yet, but it doesn't sound good for Fabian Schär. I think his season could be over, and possibly even his Newcastle career. And do you know what? If it is, what an unbelievable player that man has been for this football club. 250 appearances, 3.5 million. I think was it from Real? Was it Deportivo was signing from? Was it possibly? An incredible servant, be one of the best defenders this club has ever had, and probably gets in to a lot of Newcastle United all-time 11s, really. But Lewis Miley stepped into centre-half next to Sven Botman, and he just looked fucking class. And Eddie Howe did say after the game that he's actually trained there more than he has right back. Composed, calm. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was in great form, and he dealt with him. He handled him. I mean, Calvert-Lewin's probably thinking, who the fuck is this 19-year-old kid, man? What? He probably would have spoken to Sean Longstaff about him. I bet you Sean told him how good Lewis Miley is and is becoming. But some of his stats here, defensive contributions, 15 in this game, Out of the 5 tackles he put in, he won 4, 2 interceptions, 7 clearances, 1 block shot, 3 recoveries. He won 5 of his 6 ground duels and 3 of his 4 aerial duels. This is a kid that people used to call wet and soft, and he can't put a challenge in. That is not the same player you're looking at right now. What an unbelievable player. And then his quality on the ball is undeniable. Out of his passes, 65 out of 67 passes accurate, 97% passing accuracy. He's lowered his standards from 100, but he's 97. Passes in the opposition half, 33 out of 34 of those, 97% accuracy. Passes in his own half, 32 out of 33 are on target, 97% accuracy. And his long balls, 4 out of the 5 are on target, 80 percentile. What a footballer this lad is, honestly, absolutely incredible. And with the way Sandro Tonali performed, Lewis Miley, for me, against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup, starts in midfield, in my opinion. He has to. He has to start in midfield. That little connection, link up between him, Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton, who looks back to his best. That was unbelievable. Unbelievable to see that happening. And if we can play like that as a midfield 3, we can beat anybody. We can beat anybody at St. James's Park. We can beat Manchester City if we play with those 3 on form. Sandro Tonali is way off of it. He shouldn't be anywhere near this team. And now Team Livramento is back. It looks fit. It looks sharp. And Trippier's back in the squad. I think Trippier will start in the FA Cup at the weekend. I think Lewis Miley is in that midfield because he's become such an influential player in this team now at 19. The confidence is there. The quality is there. The quality the likes of me always knew was there and said was there. We're all seeing it now from this footballer consistently, game after game after game. And he's just going to get better and better and better. And once he can settle into his midfield position, I think he's going to start influencing games. He's going to start bossing games. He's going to start cutting teams apart with his passing. And we've got an unbelievable footballer on our hands. And honestly, I said this last night, and it sounds hyperbolic, and some fans outside Newcastle might think I'm an idiot, right? But if you've got a lad who can play like that in 3 different positions and play well, why would you not call him up to the England squad? I think Thomas Tuchel will be looking at him. Tuchel seems to be a really switched on guy, and I think he'd be looking at Lewis Miley going, wow, look at that lad. He can play right back, he can play centre back, he can play centre midfield, and he does it equally well. He'd be on the phone to Eddie Howe going, how good is he? You know, I would be shocked if Lewis Miley isn't in an England squad coming up soon and just having a look at him even before the World Cup. I'm not saying he's going to be on the plane, but I think Tuchel will want to have a little look at him in an England camp, and why not? What a footballer. Incredible. But going back to the other players who turned up, Bruno Guimaraes again, turns up when you need him. And he's done that all season. He looked shocking in the first half, really. I mean, the game itself, I don't want to get too analytical in the game because it was such a passionate exhibition of football and we were on the right end of it, but it was a shocking game in terms of no control. Both teams going at each other like a basketball game. There was no defending going on. You know, there was no control of the game. You know, them games where you have, 70, 80% possession and just pass people to death and win 3-0. It was never a game like that. And that's credit to the way Leeds played as well with their passion and their commitment and aggression to the game to come up to St. James's Park and get something. And massive shout out to Daniel Farker for setting his team up like that. It was brilliant. It really, really was. Sure, Longstaff was injured. He'd be livid he couldn't have played in that game. You know, he's absolutely watching it wherever he's watching it. Probably his mom's house, probably in the northeast if Farker's let him go back home and see his parents. But that was an unbelievable game. But Newcastle United did what they needed to do, and they did what we think they can't do this season. And I've been critical of Eddie Howe, and I've been critical of the team. But Eddie Howe made substitutions at halftime to change that game, and I will give him credit for that. I did in the post-match, and I'm still doing it now. Malik Chow was incredible. Malik Chow will come back into this team against Man City and probably have a fucking amazing game. But he was fatigued. He was knackered. His legs were going. His head was all over the place. He's played way too much football, Malik Chow, because of what we've had to do to get results. And he needs a rest out of the team, and that's why he looked rattled and he looked battered. But to be fair, credit to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I thought he was excellent for Leeds. And Aronson as well was a dangerous player. And I think Chow was trying to make up for a bit of the lack of pace, with Fabian Schär alongside him. And I just think he was burnt out. I just think his head was scrambled. His head had gone. It's a bit like when Joe Linton loses the plot. It was a bit like that. But bringing on Sven Botman, the Rolls Royce, just calm and composed and positional sense. And he looked like he'd never been away. And it was absolutely incredible. And now to go into massive fixtures going forward in terms of the Carabao Cup semi-final first leg, to have Tino Livramento, Lewis Hall, Sven Botman and Malik Chow all available and fit. That's that big back four that we've all been craving. And I think that's the back four that will start against Manchester City. I'll do my Manchester City preview in the next few days. I won't be here for post-match because sadly the day job has called me away, boo-hoo. But Mark will be here and he'll smash it on post-match as always. But that'll be the back four, I believe, starts in the game. And I think that's probably arguably on paper our best back four. It really is. But it was great to see the substitutions happen. Tino had to come on. Miley had to go into midfield. And the fact that Howe was willing to do that shows two things. One, that he's maybe grown a little bit impatient with Sandro Tonali's drop off in form. And two, he's realizing how strong of an influence Lewis Miley now has on this team, and that's why he made that change. And I'm happy that he did, because it shows he wasn't playing favourites. He was making the call, what was right for the team, and we won the game because of that. But another player has to get that shout out, and I said it on post-match, Harvey Barnes. I thought Harvey Barnes was absolutely incredible last night, from the right, from the left. He was everywhere. I did love his post-match interview as well, because they said, do you care where you play, Harvey? And he just said, not really, no. He said, I want to be in the team. And he made a joke. And he said, it doesn't really matter when, because both my goals were in the 6-yard box anyway, because he's a finisher. That's what he does. He sniffs out chances and he puts them away. And he's just an absolutely brilliant, instinctive player for doing that. You know, his 2 goals in the game from 4 shots. You know, he's got a 50% strike rate there, really. 3 shots on target, man, you know, out of them 4 shots. So he does generally find, you know, the goal, really, in terms of that. Keep pulling off some saves. His passing accuracy strong as well. You know, most of his passing there, 82% passing accuracy, you know, in the opposition half, you know, 21 passes, got 17 on target, 81 percentile. So he played really, really well. And even his defensive as well, his defensive capabilities. He won 4 of his 10 ground duels and 1 of his 2 aerial duels. So he got stuck right in, did Harvey Barnes. You know, and you put 1 tackle in and he won for a kind of a flair player. He was getting stuck in as well. You know, that one we tracked back and won the ball. You know, his dribbling, 2 of his 4 dribbles were successful, 58 touches in the game. He was fouled once, lost possession 17 times, which is great stats for a player who's played in a scrambly, chaotic game like that and has scored 2 goals in 1 year. So for me, you know, and credit to Alex from True Faith. I was listening to True Faith on one of their Patreon members, and he said you got to almost build your team around Harvey Barnes. And you know, and that might sound crazy to some people, especially the Gordon fan club, but you know, we lost a match winner and a game changer last, you know, season in Alexander Isak, who in a game like that would have that quality to just grab that chance, bang, and win you the game. And we still had Harvey Barnes last season to do that. And Harvey Barnes was still here. But he's been in and out of the team unfairly, in my opinion. Harvey Barnes has now got 9 goals for us this season. You know, and you won't put him against him finishing definitely double figures, possibly even 15 goals this season for Newcastle. Possibly could even push for 20. There's enough football left for him to do it, you know, if he can get braces like that in games. And this lad is a natural finisher. You know, at the start of the season when Gordon was being tried up front and failing miserably, if Harvey Barnes had been put into that slot against Villa, against Leeds, would he have got the chance? Would he have got the goal and scored? Possibly he would have done. Newcastle could have been way higher in the league than they've been previously. I've always backed Harvey Barnes as a finisher. I think he's the 2nd best finisher at the football club alongside Visser and Voltemada. You know, Voltemada was a bit poor in that game. I felt the game passed him by, but I think it was just too fast-paced, too high octane for a player like Voltemada, who slows it down, but slows it down with quality and touches and stuff like that as well. But in a game like that, you probably needed Visser. You know, Mark said to me, texted me in the game and said, I'm surprised Visser didn't start. I think we just don't want to burn Visser out. I think Nick Voltemada might possibly start against Bournemouth as well, and Visser will be saved for the City game to try and get that result in that game. But I thought the game passed Voltemada by. He tried, God bless him, he tried, but I just think it was just too quick, too crazy, chaotic basketball style game for Voltemada's quality in that touch and that ability to slow the game down. I just think that totally passed him by. So I don't think it was the right game for Voltemada, but it gave Visser enough of a rest. He come off, he looked lively, he had a couple of chances. You know, he was stretching their defence, he was worrying them. But I think what we'll probably end up seeing is Voltemada start the cup game, and then Visser will be fresh for City, hopefully. But I don't like Newcastle winning games like that, because it's not good for the old ticker, is it, really? But a great show of character and strength from players where we've questioned both of those aspects of their game this season, and they showed it in abundance last night. And it was driven forward by a 19-year-old in Lewis Miley, the captain, fantastic, in Bruno, who, when the game was there to be won, Bruno grew in the game. His chest came out, his superhero cape came on, as Craig Cope always says, and he took the game, and he won the game in key moments. The pass for Joe Linton's goal, he puts the ball in for Barnes' winner, he scores the penalty. Big players turn up in big occasions, and Bruno did that. Harvey Barnes is a big game player as well, a big moment player. He showed up. Joe Linton was magnificent as well. You know, I'm not going to focus on negative performances. I think that's just a very rare blip for Chow. Tonali, I've already told you my opinion on that. He wouldn't have even started the game for me, but I understand how not wanting to burn Tino's legs out too soon. But now Tino looks fit and sharp and ready to go. I think Tino needs to start against City, and Miley has to be in midfield. But it was such an entertaining game. An unbelievable game for a neutral. Sky will be licking their chops, as I said last night, having that game televised. You know, that's exactly the kind of football that Sky wanted to be showing. Do you know what I mean? It was incredible, but a brilliant result for Newcastle. Not a great performance, but a performance that encapsulated everything that Kevin Keegan brought to the football club in his managerial reign, certainly under the entertainers era. And for all those fans who were there, I had a chance for a ticket as well. I said I couldn't go. I was back late from work, and I just thought I'm going to struggle to get there, you know, on time as well. And I thought, I'll just watch it in the house. I've got a different perspective watching it in the house, but I kind of wish I was there now, to be honest with you. But an unbelievable game, an unbelievable spectacle of football, you know. But it's put Newcastle United 6, 2 points behind Liverpool. You know, there's no reason now why Newcastle can't take this as a confidence boost. If the players who are back fit can stay fit, and we can find this form, we can find this belief. Now we've managed to come back in a game, and the players know that's there now. So hopefully they can take that going forward for the last furlong of the season, and maybe Newcastle kind of finish in the Champions League positions. I wrote them off. I thought they were too inconsistent, and you can't blame me for that, guys. The body of work was there to show you that. But if Newcastle somehow found this inner belief, and with increased performances and influence in games with the likes of Lewis Miley, Harvey Barnes showing up now more often and you know, kind of consistently, Bruno Guimaraes being the big game player, is Joe Linton's return to form, you know, Tino Livramento and Botman back if they can stay back, Lewis Hall if he can stay fit. These are huge footballers for Newcastle, and that's even besides what we do in January, which Mark and I will be talking about tonight, the transfer show. Come and join us in the chat and let us know what you guys think. But Newcastle got a real opportunity here to push on and really try and make that Champions League spot their own in such an inconsistent season where nobody seems to be able to keep their shit together. But it's all there for Newcastle. You know, invest in the transfer window, keep those players fit with squad rotation without lowering the quality of the starting 11, and we can get there. We maybe can. But thanks for watching, guys. Have a belter. Remember to like and subscribe. I didn't say that on the Keegan video because I didn't think that was right to say that, because that was just a private message for, or a public message really of support for that wonderful man. And again, I can't say anymore. I really hope that he gets the care that he needs, and he comes through this, and he gets back to St. James's Park, gets that hero's welcome that he truly deserves. But thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, hype this bad boy as you always do. Have a belter. Me and Mark are back tonight. Come and join us at 9:30. Have a good one. We'll see you later. Cheers.
Heroes celebrate. They have done it.